Hello, this is Victoria from Moran Pure Naturopathy.
Hi, this is Kalyan from Sci Solution.
And today we're here to share with you our thesis, which is on the dialectics of toxemia, because as we said, and I've always said in Nature Cure, we know that toxemia is the seat of all disease without exception. So today we're going to go into the various stages that lead to toxemia and discuss toxemia itself and then what the body's response to that is. So I'm going to hand you over to Kalyan to get us started. And Kalyan's going to talk to you about the philosophical background, a bit of Nature Cure philosophy on the subject of toxemia and its background. So over to you, Kalyan.
Thanks, Victoria. So this is a great opportunity, guys, to present this particular thesis, and we'd love to go deeper with you all with your antithesis and further synthesis. Definitely, every aspect does have its own philosophical background, and there is no exception for toxemia. Toxemia starts with the stimulation. This is a very needful aspect to understand the stimulation first to understand toxemia. Now, what is stimulation? Stimulation perennially is modification of the voice of the organism. We are driven by the voice of the organism, which is our inner voice. So primarily we do have these two inner voices, pleasure and pain, and depending upon that, we accept the things or reject the things. Whenever we experience pleasure, we accept it, and whenever we experience a pain, we reject it. That's a natural cues to carry on. Now the problem happens because of the neural capability of Homo sapiens. We started replicating the pleasure to enhance pleasure, and that enhancement of pleasure is nothing but stimulation. This we need to understand. And now what happens? What is the problem in enhancing the pleasure? See, pleasure and pain both have a purpose behind. We need to connect the purpose. When we go naturally towards the pleasure or the pain, and we deal it accordingly with the acceptance or rejection, then we actually reach to the purpose. The purpose is something else, which is programmatic aspect of the nature. Now, whenever we replicate a pleasure, we create a pleasure or try to enhance pleasure artificially, we actually end up engaging our vitality more and more. And in this universe, everything works on conservation. More you conserve, more you are efficient. So any system which fails to conserve vitality fails to work efficiently. The same happens for the organisms also. Whenever the stimulation happens, whenever we try to enhance the pleasure, create the pleasure artificially, we actually engage our vitality more and more. We actually indulge in that pleasure more and more. That is what is the indulgence. And due to indulgence, what happens is the vitality or the energy, what we have inside, is engaged more and more. And that engagement, can you change the slide, please, Victoria? And that over-engagement of the vitality or the energy is nothing but a state of innervation. So this, we can go for a few examples of the stimulation and non-stimulation. For example, all the senses actually do have its own pleasure and pain impact and identification. Like for example, eyes, the primary sense organ, do have a pleasure and pain experiences. How? Whenever we look at the source of light, it is a painful experience. But whenever we look at an opaque reflected light, suppose we are looking at a tree, which is a reflected light. Light comes on the tree and then we see the tree. So that's a pleasurable sight. But whenever we look at a source of light, a bulb or sun, we actually squeeze our eyes. That is a painful experience. So this is a clear-cut cues of voice of the organism that we should grab the pleasure but reject the pain. But if we stimulate that source of light in terms of mobile screen or the laptop screen or any gadgets, then what happens? It becomes attractive. Being a source of light, also it becomes attractive. And we forget that there is a pain involved in looking at the source of light. This is what is one example of stimulation. Similar stimulation in the food, we get a lot of examples like raw mango is very pleasurable taste. But a mango jam is pleasurable, but it is an artificial route of the pleasure, where the indulgence is more and more. And there is some intention behind creation of this stimulation. So in these kind of small stimulations, when put together cumulatively, it's a great impact. It's a greater impact rather on our vitality quotient totally. And the depleted vitality is the next proceedings when we indulge ourselves in repeated stimulation. And that state is nothing but the innervated state, or innervation in one word we call in pioneer. Now, the effect of the innervation is graver in terms of the physiology to start with. I request Victoria to continue with the physiological impact of innervation. Over to you, Victoria.
Absolutely. So, I think it's something that a lot of people really don't understand. They don't understand the fact that when we talk about innervation, we're basically saying that there is only so much nerve force. There is only so much energy that the body has at any given time. And when we indulge in practices that reduce our nerve force, then there is less nerve force for the body to carry out its necessary physiological actions. And so when we look at how any system works, you have inputs. So in the case of humans, it's RAW, radiations, air, water, it's our food. And then the body will process those things that come into it. And then there's output. And this is elimination. And when we talk about metabolism being the building up of cells, which is anabolism, catabolism being the breaking down, equally important to the anabolism is the catabolism for the health of the human organism. And maybe even just a slightly bit more, who knows? Shouldn't say that, but like when we look at disease in people, we see far more problems with not enough elimination going on than with, everybody says, oh, maybe I've got a deficiency. Everybody thinks there's not enough of something. Well, actually, what's happening in most people's bodies is it's TOXAEMIA. It's a reduction of elimination is the key to what is going on in their body. So the body has only so much nerve force. We've reduced the body's nerve force by our diet and lifestyle through stimulation. The body has no longer the level that it requires to perform all the functions it has to perform. And so those processes, those third level processes of elimination and excretion, there's just not the nerve energy left to be able to adequately perform those functions. And so what we see this reduction in elimination. And when elimination is not proceeding, elimination and excretion, might we say, is not proceeding effectively and efficiently, then we are absolutely going to get a retention of toxins within the body. And then the body is going to start to hold material. And then this is what we call toxemia, where the body starts to become loaded with biological waste materials that it really shouldn't be holding. Toxemia is a state of disease. It's a sign that the body has not got enough nerve force to do what it needs to do, and now the body's holding on to waste material. And so when we look at a body that is toxemic, we'll see people say, well, why is toxemia the disease? I've got a skin rash, or I've got problems with my sinuses, or if you're a woman, you're having painful and heavy periods, somebody who has headaches. Well, there is three things that the body, when the body starts to hold on to these toxins, what will the body do with those toxins? Well, the body will do with those toxins dependent on three things. It'll be dependent on your hereditary strengths and weaknesses. it will be dependent on your diet and lifestyle, and of course there'll be environmental factors, the third influencing factors, as to what kind of symptoms that we see. So, you know, in medicine they refer to this disease and that disease and all different disease. In nature cure we say the disease is toxemia. And what medicine would refer to as being various different diseases, in nature cure we say they're not the diseases, they are the symptoms. They are the symptoms of the disease. And so, you know, we'll have this woman and she's got chronic sinus problems, she's got digestive issues, she's having skin eruptions, she's having heavy painful periods, she's getting headaches, she's generally feeling a lack of energy. And so medically they would probably look at all of those things individually as separate things. As nature cure, when somebody comes into our clinic and we do a diagnosis on someone, this woman came into my clinic, I would know exactly what was going on with this woman. I would know that all of these symptoms are signs of the fact that the body is holding far too much waste material, and these are all classic symptoms of that. And so we really need to discern if we're going to look at things from a nature cure philosophy, what is toxemia, you know, and what are the symptoms of it. You know, the symptoms are exactly that. Or, you know, whenever you read anything by the great natural hygienist Dr. Herbert Shelton, he always says, you know, the real problem is always at back of the symptom. And that's absolutely what we see with toxemia. You know, the problem is not the rash, the problem is not the headache, the problem is not blocked up sinuses, the problem is not the digestive issues, the problem is the toxemia that's driving all of those things. So we really need to look at toxemia as what it is, and when we work with people and when we treat people, we are dealing with this overload of waste material that's sitting in this person's bloodstream, this toxic heavy waste sludge that's in the system. And in nature cure, toxemia basically means poisoned blood. So it's an altered state of the blood. It's not a natural state of the blood, and this is what we need to deal with if we're going to get this person to heal. So what will happen?
What you're saying is the reduction of the elimination is the first hit, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Reduction of elimination means the elimination through the kidneys, lungs, and skin.
Absolutely, through the kidneys, lungs, and skin.
Filtered. And blood, actually, if it is not filtered, then it becomes toxic. That's what is toxic blood.
Absolutely. Because thank you, Kalyan, because the skin, the lungs, and the kidneys are all there. What they do? They filter the blood. And when those organs have not got enough energy to do their functioning correctly, then they cannot eliminate, they cannot excrete the waste material of the bloodstream. And so then there is absolutely no alternative but for the body to hold on to that waste material. It can't get rid of it, so it has to hold it. And then if it has to hold it, what does the body do with it? Because the body will do something with it, because the body in its innate and genius, the human organism knows, you know, it will always do that which is going to be physically the least harm. You know, the law of, you know, survival, you know, every cell and tissue in the organism is in the DNA is governed to survival. And so, you know, what the body will do with it will then be, you know, what is the poison that's in the body? Where can the body send it? Is why we see, you know, advanced stages of toxemia, you know, your arthritic, hardening, and then cancerous. You know, we've got hardening in the tissue, and then we've got tumors forming in the tissue. And all of these is the body sending these toxins to where they will do least harm. You know, that's what the body always does. It does least harm. But how do we get to hardening? How do we get to cancer? Well, this is where, you know, suppression, this is, you know, opted suppression, as opposed to when Kalyan was talking at the start of today, he was talking about stimulation. Well, of course, the flip side of stimulation is suppression. When we stimulate,
brothers or sisters.
Absolutely, they're the flip side of the exact same coin. If
Yes.
you, what goes up must come down, always. You know, if you stimulate the organism, it's going to come down. If you hit it with a hit of coffee, it's going to come down after that hit of coffee. If you use sugar, you know, we always talk about children, you know, getting a bit crazy on a sugar rush. Well, the other side of that sugar rush is a great big slump, you know, and these slumps get lower and lower and lower. So that's the flip side of stimulation. But then once the body becomes very toxic, once the body is holding too much waste material in the bloodstream, then the body, if there is enough vitality, will initiate an acute healing crisis. That is, it's going to raise a fever. But unfortunately, what we see so often is every time the body tries to raise a fever, every time the body tries to deal with this toxemic state of its blood, we suppress it. We opt suppression. We take medications to stop this fever. We ignore the fact that we've got a fever and we keep going to work and we keep eating and we keep doing, you know, anything we can just to stop what's going on. You know, like I so often say to people, you've got a wrong philosophy here. Your philosophy says that what the body is doing is wrong action. In Nature Cure, we know always what the body is doing is right action. And so if the body says, I need to raise a fever.
Whatsoever. Yes.
Whatever the symptoms. And you know, I remember writing a post a while ago on my Facebook page saying, you know, you're far better off with your symptoms than without them. And it sounds a little bit crazy when you think about it, but actually you are far better off with your symptoms than suppressing those symptoms. You know, the symptoms, the effort of the organism is these symptoms, you know, the skin rash, the blocked sinuses, the headaches, the, you know, heavy, you know, painful periods, you know, the digestive issues, all of these symptoms we are experiencing is actually the body trying to heal itself in its best efforts. You know, it's the body functioning as best as it can under the circumstances within it which it finds itself. So we've opted stimulation. The body has lowered, you know, because remember, whatever stimulates the organism, the power doesn't come from the stimulant. The power comes from the body. It's something, you know, we've done something or we've consumed something that has irritated us, because irritation causes stimulation. We've irritated the organism and the organism has responded. It is the response of the organism, and the power for this response has 100% come from your power. It has not come from the coffee. It's not come from the sugar. It's not come from the meat. It's not come from anything else. This, you know, the power that you see of the stimulation has all been drawn down from the body's own innate, inherent vitality that you were born with. And so then we get the slump, we get the suppression, you know, of the suppression, you know, the stimulation leads to suppression of energy, not enough energy to do the jobs, not enough energy, most especially because, like we said, you know, in a system it's 3 phase, and the last phase, well, there's nothing left, sorry, can't do this job properly. And so there is this reduction of power of the organism, and not enough power for the organs of elimination, the skin, the lungs, the kidneys. The body's holding this waste material. Eventually, if there's enough vitality in the organism, the body's going to respond. It's going to go, too much poison in this body. We have to instigate an extraordinary effort here to deal with this. And that's precisely what the healing crisis is. It's precisely what, you know, what is otherwise known as a fever. And with a fever, you're going to get all sorts of symptoms. You're going to get pain, you're going to get headaches, you're going to get sore back, you're going to get vomiting, you're going to get diarrhea, you're going to get sinuses pouring, lungs coughing up rubbish. You know, these are all elimination. The urine is going to be dark, the tongue is going to be coated, the breath is going to be foul. You know, these are all signs of the body elimination.
Irrespective of the discomforts, there is something coming out of the body that we need to understand.
Absolutely. I just led a person through a fast, and their eyes were just all swollen up, and pus, all this pus for days was just pouring out of the eyes. I'd done a diagnosis on the person, and they had so much waste material laying down in the head region. And when this,
in fact, for the audience, this particular conversation we planned 3 weeks back, but due to Victoria raised her fever, we had to postpone it. And it's not that the pure nature cure practitioners are acute disease free. We actually celebrate fever very repeatedly, and we enjoy that and congratulate each other.
Said, sorry, Kalyan, we'll have to put everything on hold. I've got a fever. So his response was, congratulations. And I was lying there thinking, oh, I don't feel like really good, congratulations, but you see the body is always left in a better state if it's allowed to run its course. Absolutely.
So I'm sure participants will have a lot of questions that we are talking about the chronic things, but we are not talking about the infection, which is the buzz of the world these days. How do we perceive that, and also deficiencies and all. So we'll actually take those during the live, but in one sentence we can just say that those all are the effects. The cause is the toxemia, which starts with population and continues with the suppression, right?
Absolutely. And then crisis happens, and then we suppress it.
Yes.
And it happens again. Oh, it's not convenient. It's not convenient right now. I'll suppress it. And we're all guilty of that. Guilty. We've all done it. I know you're guilty too, Kalyan. Sorry, I've got a course this weekend. This is not convenient. So, and this is how we get to these chronic states and so forth. But all of this, everything comes after toxemia. Everything is a result of toxemia, and infections and viral infestations and however you want to look at it, everything is a result of toxemia, and if we were to even just put it down as we're seeing right now, this supposed COVID-19 virus that's doing the globe over, who's having problems with it? Nobody who's healthy is having a problem with it. It's all the heavily toxemic, chronic people are having problems, because it's the straw, it's the last thing the body can handle, and that's what's going on here. So in any case, in any situation, the seat of disease is toxemia. And that's about it for today, I think, unless there's something you want to add, Kalyan. So when we come together on Sunday, the 28th, and have our live session, write down any questions that you might have, bring them to the session, and let's answer any questions that you have, because we want people to, nature cure is about, confidence. We want to instill confidence in people, and that's born of knowledge, and that knowledge is based on the truth. And that's nature cure. We want to educate you, we want to empower you, and we want you to understand. And let's have a discussion. This was the thesis. Let's have some antithesis discussion, and then we'll come to our synthesis. And at the end of this discussion, there will be a synthesis, and we will all have a really good understanding of toxemia and the fact that it is the seat of all disease. So look forward to chatting with you all on Sunday.
Yeah, thank you all of you, and looking forward to have a very engrossing discussion. You can change the slide, Victoria. Thank you all.
Bye-bye.